In all of Edmonton that do great things for the environment. I'm quite flattered to be asked by him and Stephanie to speak at this great march. As you heard, I'm an architect with a local company called Isaac. We've been trying to build sustainable buildings for the last 20 years, ever since the Rio Convention, and we're quite aware that it's been getting easier all the time, and that's amazing to see. It's because of you here today that is getting going. So, tomorrow in New York, world leaders will be gathering for the Climate Summit, which has the tagline, Catalyzing Action. But it's the People's Climate March today that will show the need for political and economic will for change. So I hear there's over 300,000 people marching in New York. Over 100,000 in Paris. And lots of people mobilized for this cause. And it's great to see the small but mighty crowd in Edmonton here today. So as an architect, I feel our industry has a huge impact and a great responsibility in climate change. I know that many of our buildings contribute more than 40% of all the greenhouse gases produced in their day-to-day use. That's a huge portion that architects and engineers have a huge, influence over in how we design things. And even during construction, there's even the waste that's produced, the amount of energy that goes into buildings is phenomenal. And what we're beginning to do now is learn how to make buildings smarter and better and more effective, more healthy for people, more efficient, and hopefully carbon neutral. Architects also determine the livability of cities by how they shape its urban design. We can propose how cities can become more walkable, how they can increase density and still be livable, how we can connect them through bike lanes and public transit. So I hope how architects can influence how the city will take shape and how we can strive for sort of a net zero future. Unfortunately, I think we could also be detrimental if we came into sort of perpetuating urban sprawl and car-oriented developments. So, as an architect, I believe it's my moral responsibility to lessen this impact in the work on behalf of my clients. I always have to do work that helps our cities become better for today and for my son's future. One of the occupants of our home is my 12-year-old boy, Adar, who reminds me, like David's son, we have the possibility to make the change we need to see. I'm proud to say that the International Union of Architects has committed our profession to eliminate carbon emissions by 2050 in the buildings we design. But an even more ambitious organization called Architecture 2030, led by Ed Mazria, has created a 2030 challenge, essentially hoping that all new buildings that are built will be carbon neutral by that year, 2030. And in fact, Ed Mazria was here in Edmonton in 2005 to actually launch that idea at the National Festival of Architecture. Unfortunately, that's as ambitious today as it was back then. But it's finally great to see some call for change in the voices we have here today, and also the awakening of more conservative bodies that are finally realizing the importance of this change. A recent report by PricewaterhouseCoopers suggested that we have only 20 years to find alternatives to our high carbon world. And recently, the Global Commission on Economy and Climate, led by the former Prime Minister of Mexico, argues that the economic costs of the status quo are actually higher than moving to a new economy based on renewable energy, alternative fuels, and just plain good old conservation of resources. So we know it's commercially viable to make solar power work. We can even do it in our northern Edmonton cold, sometimes bitterly cold winters. And now all we need is a political will, and that's why I came today, is to help rally that political support. I'm somewhat pleased by the City of Edmonton and how they're moving towards Mayor Iveson's LRT commitment. I still have faith in the guy. I think public transportation is key to linking our transit-oriented developments and other city amenities like libraries and community centers, rec centers, our community leagues. And I think our City Council's commitment to pilot urban beekeeping and perhaps even chickens in our backyards is great. I'm sure most of you in this cabin signed up for some of those pilots. But I think we really need commitment now from the province and from the feds. They seem to be laggards. And we need to provide our political leaders examples of positive change. We need to share some of the successes, as David has mentioned, and what I'd like to probably share with you, just a couple local examples that I've had the privilege to be a part of. So, David, I don't think you mentioned the Chasing Net Zero series that he and a group of us at the Sustainable Buildings Consortium is working on. So essentially, we've established a number of webisodes of how Edmonton is a leader in net zero housing. And through our early local adopters, it's now within everyone's grasp, as Landmark Homes is committed to do. So net zero homes produce as much energy as they consume through good design and renewable energy technologies like photovoltaic panels, solar hot water systems, and perhaps geo-exchange. And people like Peter M. Rongan from Habitat Homes or Conrad Norbert, his client who pioneered the Mill Creek Net Zero Home, are amazing leaders in our community, and they're paving the way for the rest of us to do what we possibly can do with our own lives. So David also and Stephanie mentioned my own house, which is sort of an experiment. As an architect, you tend to get to only experiment with your own personal projects. So as we needed a house for our growing family, we were able to build a passive solar house just in the northeast side in Beverly Heights. And I'm pleased to say we have the last couple of years survived our winters without any gas line or any sort of fuel. All of our heating is actually provided through triple glazed windows, essentially the sun shining through them and the house being kept warm by the very thick insulated walls. And it's as simple as that. And if it's cloudy, and thank goodness we live in the most sunniest part of all of Canada, where it's actually not very cloudy in winter, we sometimes have to throw on a wood-burning fireplace. All of our hot water is provided by 16 solar panels, and those panels also produce half of all of our electrical needs. So these housing experiments, both in my own home and with others from Habitat and other net zero projects, part of the Equilibrium housing program here in Edmonton, have really proven how successful We've been in cold climates, in places like Edmonton, and if we could do it here, we could do it all across the country. Right. So, with that experiment proven to be fairly successful, in my day job as an architect, I've had the great fortune to work with another great client called the Mosaic family of companies, led by a guy and a girl, Dennis and Christy, who own a company called Oil Country Engineering. They also recently have joined forces with EcoAmmo Consulting, an amazing environmental consulting firm here in Edmonton. Both companies basically started up here and have grown to be very, very successful. So now we were tasked with building them a new corporate headquarters down in the south side. So they challenged us to build the first commercial net zero building in Alberta. And we are extremely pleased to say we're halfway through construction, and we hope by this time next year we'll have the data to prove it. So Oil Country Engineering, if you can imagine, they actually design oil rigs. But Dennis and Christy, being the pioneers and people with foresight, have known for some time now that their company is on its probably its last generation. So they have decided to move and transition towards sustainable technologies and green technologies, and that's exactly why they're green power. They're also creating in their new building a space called Interchange, a place where you actually can incubate these new technology companies and help them get a head start. And this basically couldn't be possible without my friends at EcoAmmo blazing the trail to make this possible. So the Mosaic Center is going to have a solar array that covers most of its roof, and a good portion of its south and west walls. It also has a geo-exchange system that taps the soil and the earth for heating and cooling. The heating actually also comes from a computer data center that provides quite a bit of heat for its winter needs. And they've basically decided to do this in a community where most of their employees already work in Summerside in the South End. So they're already thinking how they can minimize people's commute to work, how they can actually build in communities people are working in, how they can help their staff sort of stay in the places where they've grown to love. So basically, we're now beginning to see the next generations of buildings and homes we are designing that are in everyone's grasp to become efficient, to become environmentally sustainable, and hopefully net zero. Also, we do not have to compromise on our quality of life. We don't have to pay more for these environmentally responsible choices. And believe it or not, the Mosaic Center, which we're building, is being built at the exact same price as a conventional office building, with none of the features that you would see there. So the whole 220 kilowatt solar array is basically being provided because we've realized savings in how the building is designed and how it's built by engaging the trades to help us build it more effectively. And so I'll leave you with just the final thought to try to convince our policymakers and politicians that this is the direction we need to move in. And it's one full of successes and positive stories out there that we need to share. And hopefully we can, amongst us, share these stories so that they can get the message. Finally, thank you very much for inviting me, Stephanie and Kim, to the People's Climate March. It's been an honor to speak to you today. So let's just strive for a sustainable future. Thank you.